The first public doses of the COVID-19 vaccine were administered today. So far, side effects include fatigue, nausea, and nausea. It's like I don't know how to read. The first public doses of the COVID-19 vaccine were administered today. So far, side effects include fatigue, nausea, and a sudden urge to switch to AT&T.
Ellen DeGeneres has tested positive for COVID-19. She's not sure where she got it, but it probably wasn't an employee since it spread through personal contact.
The pandemic is pushing New York City's homeless population to record numbers. Quote, "We have to do something drastic," said Mayor de Blasio, "or else people will think we're Los Angeles."
Ben & Jerry's is partnering with Colin Kaepernick to debut a new ice cream flavor. President Trump is so angered by it, he briefly considered not eating it.
And finally, President Trump just tweeted a short time ago that Bill Barr will resign as Attorney General next week, and Deputy Jeff Rosen will become acting Attorney General. For you history buffs, Bill Barr essentially just hopped off the Titanic at Queenstown, Ireland, before it headed back out to sea. And for the last time ever, the Trump Report starts now. Welcome to the Trump Report. There were a number of mispronunciations in there, but I think it adds to the charm. I think that's what people stay for the hard. People tune in for the hard hitting political reactions, but they stay for the mispronunciations. I am Christian Bladt, as always, and with us is Scott Moore.
Hey guys,
and joining me, my fellow mirth maker Tamra Brown. Instantly in the live chat, Sam Whitfield of the Whitfield Report. Our favorite conservative is here. I think, Sam, you might not know Storage Yard Resident. It is someone who has been with every single one of our shows. But Sam, you're right up there. So thank you for joining us. So it's been an interesting week plus since we did our last show. There was this crazy Texas lawsuit that was so crazy that I think it was 159 Republicans signed on. You had a few other states that tried to get into it. And for me, I feel like that was where we went past we're just humoring the old man, because you felt like a lot of it was like, yeah, we don't want Trump's ire. We'll just kind of go with it. But then when people are signing on to this and, the Supreme Court could not have been really bothered to hear it, which I thought was interesting. There's a couple of ways that people on the right perceived it a way they wanted to, because Alito and Thomas said that they would have been willing to hear it. And somebody on Twitter summed it up as 7 of them said, "Oh, this is bullshit. We have to throw it out." And then the other 2 said, "Oh, this is bullshit, but you should be allowed to say it and bring it in front of us." So really, like, the 9 of them were like, "Oh, we are definitely not hearing this." Scott, as this was unfolding during the course of those few days, and we were waiting for the Supreme Court to, figure out how to use their Zoom links. I feel like that's why it took so long for them to rule on this. What were your thoughts about the Texas case?
I mean, all I was going to say is, like, they say everything's bigger in Texas, including idiocy, because you have to be a real idiot to think that this even had any legitimacy. Like, I knew that even with the Supreme Court stacked in the conservatives' favor, but even the Supreme Court realized that this case had absolutely no standing. And, it went back and forth. I was like, is Ken Paxton hoping to get a pardon in the next month? And so he's trying to appease Donald Trump, because even he had to realize that was not going to go anywhere. So I wasn't, I thought it was completely stupid. I think what surprised me while we were waiting to see if the Supreme Court would pick it up, which, again, I had no thoughts that was even going to remotely occur, because, again, it had no standing. It was just all the other states that kind of glommed on and jumped on board, and the attorneys general from some of these states, and all the what was 106 Republicans in the House. I mean, it's just the fact that many people went on the record for a candidate that they knew, or for a president that they knew was going to lose. All of this fear of losing these base voters is just, it is crazy. There's no other way to say it. I don't know how that you would be that loyal to this person, this president who would not be loyal back to you, only to be concerned that you're going to lose a few voters, which, in my opinion, if it ever came down to, I know that Trump attracted a lot of new voters in 2016, but to think that you can't go on your own and be, a party that should be looking ahead to its future and not with something like Trump right now is crazy. So I think that was the part that surprised me, that so many Republicans were willing to go on the record for this president and this ridiculous attempted coup, for any other words that you could use, is just mind-boggling to me, because it's not going to look good for them down the line in the future at all.
And Tamra, a representative from New Jersey, Pasquarel, has said that Nancy Pelosi actually should not seat these 106 Republicans. And then there's other people that have said, sort of going back to the age of Reconstruction after the Civil War, is that at the very least, they should all be mandated to take new loyalty oaths, because of the fact that really what they were signing on for was trying to overturn the will of the people who voted in an election that I know how many times President Trump has tweeted in all caps that everyone knows that there was fraud, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. What do you think about all this, Tamra?
Well, I wonder what I would do if I were a conservative representative in Congress, knowing that should I point out that there is no definitive evidence of fraud, and then I lose my support and any potential damage my career for the future. What's your alternative? You could try to launch some sort of education for your Republican constituents, but I don't see that working either. I don't want to say that I give any sympathy towards these Republican Congress members, but they don't really have. I would say they don't really have a choice then to double down on this sham.
Sure. Although, I mean, there were still people who didn't. I mean, I guess it's interesting that it's, yes, there were some states attorney generals and I think some governors, but you didn't have anybody from the Senate who got in on this. Everybody stayed other than Ted Cruz.
Thing.
Yeah, other than Ted Cruz saying that he would have argued this in front of the Supreme Court, which, in all honesty, we know that what Ted Cruz should be focused on was the fact that they finally broke one of those Zodiac killer ciphers. So we're this close to figuring out that it was him. But yeah, to your point, Tamara, thank you, Scott.
I mean, in general, as far as the fraud claims, aside from Mitt Romney, no Republican senator has spoken out against, or correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Murkowski or anybody besides Romney.
I think Collins as well, but to your point, it's the ones that you would expect. So it's the handful, and then you even have John Cornyn, who today said that I mean, it sure seems like Joe Biden is the president-elect, but he doesn't even want to say it. He's just like, I mean, barring any more legal challenges, is basically what he said.
Again, we would like to believe that our politicians that we elect are looking out for the moral and ethical good, but these are human beings who need to look out for their own careers. And if Lindsey Graham admits that there is no evidence of fraud, I mean, his career is done. So
but
he's willing to do that.
I would take an opposite stand on it, especially for senators that just won re-election, like a Lindsey Graham. I think all senators at this point, because they're on 6-year terms, should have the courage to say, especially ones that just won, because then Lindsey Graham could basically, then you're going to say, okay, well, was there fraud in your election? It's just, they should be the ones to take the forefront and say, look, Joe Biden has won. I understand some of these Congress people are concerned that they're going to get somebody from the right to primary them. But if you're the better candidate, then you'll win in those elections in 2022. So I see no excuse, because if they all would have, as a caucus and as a group, had said, after November 7th, when it was likely that Joe Biden had won, from those handful of states, and just stood up and said, no, we disagree with the president. Yes, he can go and fight whatever legal battles he wants, but from our perspective, there has not been any cases of fraud. We ourselves have just won, these elections, and though it was close, whatever your case is, and you can say go for it, take your case before, but start to prepare the fact that you have lost. I think that would have at least garnered a little better respect for both sides, because now the ability of bringing the country together is not going to happen when you're going to have 70% of Republicans thinking that there was fraud, and now they're going to have an illegitimate president. It just doesn't help as we move forward into next year. And then, obviously, if depending on how the Georgia Senate race unfolds, you could still have Mitch McConnell as leader. And then where does that lead the country? So I think it was dangerous, and shows no courage at all from any of these Republicans that could not stand up and just be truthful. And you could couch it and you could say, go on and do what you need to do. But it's really asinine at this point.
And I do think that the majority of them, if not all of them, knew that this was not something that was going to succeed. But they definitely felt, some kind of pressure that they're like, oh, we have to get in on this. And, the way that, President Trump was saying that, like, oh, the Texas case in front of the Supreme Court, that's the big one, when they tossed out the Pennsylvania case. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, this is apparently it's even smaller. I wanted to bring in these comments from Sam Whitfield. Some of his audience is mad that he's not as outraged about the Supreme Court decision. He's not shocked by the result, shocked that others are shocked. Yeah, I think that that's fair. That, the fact that anyone is surprised that the Supreme Court did this. I mean, I think that people didn't understand what the Supreme Court is. There are definitely issues that, especially the three justices that Trump appointed, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, are going to, move the court further right on some issues. But, constitutional issues about overthrowing an election, I was just like, who really thought that was going to happen? And I've gone back and forth for the most part, and I'll tweet this occasionally, that I don't think President Trump actually believes all this. But you had his niece saying earlier today that he lies so much that he eventually starts to believe his own lies. So did he get himself, Tamra, into a point where he was convinced that, I think that after the election was called for Biden, that he knew he lost, but he's like, well, I gotta really ramp up this machine and earn some money. But in the months since, I feel like there have been moments where he's like, yeah, I can still do this,
I think when it comes to Trump, that level of narcissism can't be measured. And is he aware that, is he believing his own lie at this point? I think when you are a person that lives in that level of, praise versus gloating, nothing is ever a matter of, is this lie true or not? It's always a matter of, is this what I'm saying benefiting me or not? So I don't think his position has changed since he first alleged fraud. Like, I don't think any awakening has happened in his head. I think it's still at the same level. It's just more about whether or not, tweeting in all caps about it brings him, more and more attention, or if the attention is, I think it's only when the attention will start waning that his position will start waning.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that there's the expectation that it was going to succeed, I think is maybe fleeting. But I think that when a ruling comes down against him, he still doesn't handle it very well. I mean, there was the Hanukkah party at the White House that he was reportedly going to appear at, and then they announced that he wouldn't be appearing there because it was after the Supreme Court decision. And there have been quite a few of these indoor Christmas and Hanukkah, so these indoor holiday parties at the White House. And I wrote this on Twitter the other day that we should give credit to President Trump for not just spreading holiday cheer, but super spreading holiday cheer. I think he's really going out of his way to make sure that everyone is really infected by the holiday spirit. So good job for him. But so I don't know. What do you take from the fact, Scott, that, he he spoke at a Christmas party the day earlier. He's like, "We're going to win," and he promised them they were going to win. And it bothers some people that the way these things get reported in the media are, and he lied and told them that they were going to win. What do you think about the fact that even he is like, "Well, I can't show my face because they just reiterated how much of a loser I am."
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because like what Tamara was saying just a few minutes ago, he's a narcissist, plain and simple. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing for him right now, this fraud that he's claiming. On the one hand, he's a two-bit con. So everything that he does is looking for ways of keeping his brand going and making money. And so this is a money-making venture for him right now because he knows that his presidency is closing. And when he comes back to being a private citizen, a lot of the things that he's been shielded from are now going to be back out in the forefront, like some of the tax fraud and other things that wire fraud and other things that he might be accused of. And also this is a great way of just making a lot of money because with the campaign, you can basically do whatever you want with the money that's being raised. And I said this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. Like, if anyone's stupid enough to pay him money for these recounts and these other legal things, that's on them. Because he's the one that's going to be laughing all the way to the bank. But on the second side of it too, he is a narcissist, and so he can never admit defeat, even if deep inside he knows he is lost and there's no hope for changing that. He will not outwardly project that because now he can walk away on January 20th and claim fraud and claim a whole host of other issues, but never actually admit that he actually lost, nor ever doing a concession speech or anything else. So he can still walk away as a narcissist and act like, well, I've won every time. I would have won the popular vote in 2016 if it wasn't for fraud, and be able to kind of protect his psyche and his ego and everything else by, blaming everything else but himself or admitting that he lost. So it's two-pronged for him. It's money-making, and also, again, it's protecting his ego right now by not publicly admitting to people that he lost and keeping, like Tamara said, the attention on him and keeping his rabid base frothed up. So whatever he decides to do in the future, if he decides to run again in 2024, or he decides to anoint the successor or anything else, or any other things that are going to happen in the midterms, that he will continue to have that attention front and center and keep his rabid base just ready to go, and keep it going as a showy salesman two-bit con would do. So that's definitely my take on where we are right now with him. In general, yeah.
I would just like to point out for the listeners, the viewers right now in the chat. I just want to make sure everybody's aware that the Trump report would have won a Peabody Award this year if it weren't for fraud. So just make sure everybody's aware of that.
I think that's
absolutely
that's really an excellent point. And another point from Sam: Trumpism isn't going away even if Trump isn't at the helm, which I believe he will not be. It's akin to how Obama changed the left forever. I think that there is a contingent on the right that is very invested in all of this, but I do think that what he hasn't necessarily changed forever is the Republican Party. I think it's a mess right now, and I don't know who comes in and sorts it out. I think it'll depend on really how these next 4 years go, and do they have control of the Senate? And what sort of gains they're able to make in, I guess, 2022. How are they able to position themselves? And it keeps coming up in terms of the relation to the Georgia runoff. You basically have both candidates saying variations of, oh yeah, that election was a sham, but I won, and I'm going, and then you still have to vote. So it's a very inconsistent message. And I guess I was reading that there were a million new vote by mail applications. And I think that ultimately, and you hear about various show business fundraisers for Georgia. And I think ultimately it's going to depend on what voters in Georgia do. It doesn't matter how much money you spend because of the amount of money that went to Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham's opponents for the general election. It was like $10 million. Ultimately, it's just how motivated people are going to be and how many people stay home because they think their vote doesn't count.
So what you're saying is Hollywood's better bet, rather than filtering money into these Democratic candidates, their better bet is to just make better Netflixing programming so those Georgia voters would prefer to stay home for that reason.
Yes, I think that's exactly what they should be doing. And if they had spent those $10 million, I don't know, giving us a new season of The Office or something, then people would be like, I can't vote. I have to watch this. So obviously the big story today, which President Trump didn't want to be the big story, was that we did have our Electoral College. They were certifying all their votes in state capitals across the country. And they certified at this point, he doesn't have the 306, but at this point, once California did it about an hour ago, he's had more than 270.
He's at 302. He's at 302 right now. Only Hawaii has not done their 4, which will be
they're hanging loose right now. They'll get to it. You know? I mean, it is only 12. It's almost 12:30 there. You know, I mean, they're like, all right, after lunch we're going to start working. I swear. But yeah, so he's at 302. So it's more than I thought.
I did think that California was going to defect and give 55 electoral votes to Dolly Parton. I know that you would think Tennessee would do that, but no, it's California that is the biggest supporter. And honestly, if they had done that, I don't think that many people would have been, nationally been that upset by it. But
no, I mean, she was definitely on the Jolene ticket, and had I had the opportunity, I would have really had to consider voting for Dolly. But so there were no instances of real electors,
faithless electors,
voting for anyone else. However,
there hasn't been.
There is video in Michigan. But there's video in Michigan of a Republican group of electors that brought a very unofficial looking manila envelope and were stopped by state police who had to say, like, I don't want to get into politics. Just, you can't come in. You don't get to come in just because you say you should. And I honestly, I would like to have seen, like, did they go to Kinko's and get it laminated? I mean, did they have like a really nice piece of paper, or did they just tear it out of their trapper keeper? I don't quite know what they had. And you also
was it, like
had
a backstage pass.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you should let me in. I'm voting. I'm casting our electoral votes for.
And then
President
that didn't
Trump.
Work. And they did the old, behind the planter.
Yeah. And you also had in Georgia and Pennsylvania, you had a group of other electors meet and cast their votes as some sort of legal challenge, just in case a legal challenge takes hold, then they've gone on record. But in no instances are any of these actual electors, and the real electors have been accepted. And I think that I don't know. It says it's been a long month, a little bit more than a month for democracy in terms of like, oh, are you going to have it? Because we talked about how 4 years ago you had a few faithless electors that didn't vote for President Trump that were supposed to. And I guess the Supreme Court, I think it was the Supreme Court, who actually made it more difficult for faithless electors' votes to count, ironically. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's nice. It's not the end of the process, as everybody knows. Congress still has to vote on it, but it's. I guess some people can breathe a sigh of relief, but I don't know. I mean, to me, Tamra, it's like, oh, okay, good. So the system can work. It's just, if you keep your head in this stuff too much, you start to think like, what are they going to do? Who's going to, is Michigan going to put all of their votes towards its favorite son, Ted Nugent? I don't know.
I think all of the coverage that I've seen today has been like the commentary by Jake Tapper and stuff. They just keep repeating, like, if this were a normal election, we're not supposed to understand the electoral process. This is boring. It's supposed to be boring. Americans aren't supposed to be tuned in to whether or not their state's electors were faithless, and getting a better grasp on this process that, some adults have never understood. So it's kind of funny, the level of education that Americans are getting this year by having to understand our own laws, our own election laws, and our own constitution. But where's I going with that? Oh yeah, but it just hearing several commentators today say that, like, I miss the days when the electoral vote was barely on the news because it was just boring. It just, like, that's kind of Elizabeth Warren's MO, is to talk about like, banking should be boring. A lot of the things that are the biggest issues in politics right now. It's like, we need to go back to when these types of things were boring and people were barely paying attention, because now that we have to keep better track. I don't know. It's just a different time.
And I do think that politics are about to get a lot more boring, a little bit more than a month from now. And you can sort of focus on things, and it's, you'll probably be able to go whole days and not think about it, just.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. By the way, Sam jumps in. I'd vote for Ted Nugent. No joke. Sure,
a lot of people would.
Yeah. I mean, I would certainly vote for him for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, except I think he's already in. So I don't think he needs my vote there. But
only
Scott,
vote for him before I'd vote for Mike Love.
You know what? that is a very controversial statement, but I stand behind it because Brian Wilson's already there. So Scott, when the fact that we saw this in action, and the actual voting of the actual certification of the votes is fairly boring, but you did hear in Georgia, there's video of they applauded after they were done and they certified. You heard that in California too, a little bit more surprising in California. And in Georgia, you figured that a few of them were probably like, well, I guess I got to do this. This isn't what I want, but this is what happened,
Well, I mean, you're those electors that are a slate that's chosen that are Democrats,
right,
So they were excited. I think for California in particular today, it was just because it officially clinched the presidential election for Joe Biden. So they were instrumental in that. And it was kind of nice because, Kamala Harris being from here and now the vice president elect. But I would take it as we escaped and dodged a bullet this time with the Electoral College. We came very close to having a very different outcome and realizing that there are a lot of holes with this system. That just thankfully we had states and we had Republican leaders in these states that refused to bend to Donald Trump's will, which is somewhat surprising. I mean, when you think about the close race in both Georgia and Arizona that have Republican officials. I mean, Arizona Secretary of State is Democrat, but the majority of the top officials in Arizona and all the top officials in Georgia are Republican and very big loyalists to Donald Trump, like Brian Kemp, basically ran his campaign in 2018 as another Trump candidate. To see them stick up for the rule of law, same thing with Michigan's, House Speaker of the House and Maine Senator there. I can't think of his name, not U.S. Senator, but state senator. Even New Hampshire, New Hampshire now is a trifecta. All Republicans are running the state government there.
Right.
And you think about how easy it would be for some of these Republican officials to say no, or there's fraud. We also lucked out that Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all the states that flipped to Trump in 2016, all elected Democratic or reelected Democratic governors in 2018, that also helped put a stopgap to the Republican legislatures in those states as well. So it's just grateful that a couple of those things worked out. But if things had shifted in another direction and they try to throw chaos in some of these states, you could very easily see the easiest thing would be able to send another slate of electors. The Republicans in the House and Senate, State House and Senate, send their Republican slate. The Democrat sends a Democratic slate. And now you send it to Congress, where you end up having an issue where you have things that could happen. Or I think it was like 0.7% of a difference in certain states of the popular vote for Trump. If he just got not even 1% more across these various states, we would have ended up with a 269 Electoral College tie, which then would have gone to the House and Senate. And the way it's set up, even though the House is Democratic controlled, it all goes by state. You have 26 states that are Republican and would have voted for Donald Trump. And of course, the Senate would have then voted for Mike Pence, being the Republican Senate, as vice president. So we came very close to having much different issues. We're just fortunate that Joe Biden won by over 7 million votes. and that he won a hefty Electoral College victory, that didn't happen. And you had a few Republican officials at the state level that refused to bend to Donald Trump. But it proves to show that we really escaped a bullet, and we should not just go back and pretend like it's boring and normal again. We should really look at Electoral College reform. Obviously, to change it is a constitutional amendment, which would be very unlikely, but maybe we look at beyond the interstate pact that a bunch of states have signed right now, including California, that will take the popular vote winner in the national election and give them their electors. But maybe we should look at proportional, like Nebraska does in Maine, so it's a little more equal and represents the people's votes. But we should not just go back and pretend that this is okay, because in the future, as we've said on this podcast many times, you could also have a Democratic person that's charismatic and comes in and has the same authoritarian type tendencies. It's just not as lazy or as terrible as Donald Trump is and has horrible legal people at his disposal. And you can look at something very different. So we should really focus and not let this just go away in the future. To not let something like this become that close to happening again and actually succeed next time in overthrowing a real election.
Right. And we've talked about this in the last few weeks, Tamra, that if, President Trump bragged about how he was going to surround himself by the best people. But I think if he actually had surrounded himself with better people, that if he didn't actually have Rudy Giuliani in charge of any legal challenges, you can't say that he would have been able to subvert the will of the election, but he could have certainly had more success. It was just everything that they had. You were just like, yeah, but you're bringing cases. It was in Wisconsin over the weekend. It was, it was like, I thought you should get your chance to present evidence, but then you didn't present any evidence, because as we've established, it's one thing to go through some wild conspiracy theories on Twitter or in a Holiday Inn conference room, but once you're sworn in and you say it in court, you're like, oh yeah, no, we don't have any evidence. We don't want to do that. And I don't know what you think, Tamara. I mean, to what Scott said, it's really something that you see how easily it could have happened by better people. People who really knew how to try and get these things done. And I don't think we're going to see any changes by 2024. And I think we could certainly end up with the exact same situation. What do you think, Tamara?
Well, I think as far as who Donald Trump surrounds himself with, I don't think it was luck. I don't think it was this charismatic person happened to luck into hapless people around him. It's more a matter of, you are the company you keep. So he chooses, to him, the intelligent person isn't the person who may understand the law the best. It's the person who is the bulldog that, will fight dirty, because that's what he prioritizes. So, his the best people to him, he is the company that he keeps. So I don't think it was just a matter of luck that he didn't have, a more reliable, more capable staff to handle these things. It was luck on our part. But yes, to what Scott was saying, in the future, we could have a Republican candidate who is better at, just a little bit more thorough as far as the laws and the Constitution is concerned, and can use every vagueness in the Constitution in their favor, even more than Trump did. So it is dangerous. And I don't know. I mean, who, if Trump doesn't run in 2024, I don't think he will. I think that Don Jr. will run. But what other Republican? I mean, who are the Republican? Donald Trump has taken so much space in the general atmosphere for the last 10 years that it's sort of made it. There aren't a lot of any other superstars that have risen. So, who?
Yeah,
I
mean, I would say everybody who ran against him in 15 and 16 none of them are viable candidates. It's probably somebody that we're not thinking.
Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't think Ben Shapiro wants to hold elected office, but he did just move to Tennessee, so maybe he could do that from there. But I don't believe that that.
I mean, we have
Donald-
conservatives in the chat. Who do you guys think would
Yeah, that's
be
a
the
great point.
rising Republican candidate in 2024? Like, who do you think could harness the power of the Republican Party behind them?
Yeah, Sam, who do you think would be somebody that is charismatic? You could get a lot of people to, at least listen to. It could be it could be somebody that's a Trump loyalist or somebody from outside that bubble. Maybe it's just somebody that we're not seeing. I stand by my assertion that Donald Trump Sr. will certainly not be running for president in 2024.
But you still think Hillary will, don't you?
Well, that's what I was going to say before. I wanted to talk about the electors. And if you saw, both Bill and Hillary Clinton were electors for New York State, and they submitted their votes for Joe Biden. So that is actually the thumbnail for this picture. So that was the moment where I had to concede when I saw that picture. I'm like, I guess Hillary's not going to get into this race. I'm surprised. I still thought there was a chance. I still thought that that's who she had rallied faithless
Christian
with
his cigar dangling out of his mouth and his fedora at the racetrack. He tears up his racehorse card and heads home.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I think that's the case. Kendall in the chat says, I'll be watching to see if Biden at least attempts to close some of the gaps that are based on having somebody with some kind of honor at the helm. But you do have these ongoing questions about President-elect Biden, because there was this investigation into Hunter Biden, who it looks like probably needs to pay some back taxes, and the fact that Bill Barr did not really disclose the ongoing investigation prior to the election. And it seems, we talked about it in the joke portion of the show. It seems that saying that, taking that into consideration, and also saying that there was no wrongdoing in the election, that essentially sealed the deal for Barr. But the surprising thing was just the gracious tweet from President Trump and the sycophantic email, or I guess it wasn't an email, the memo from Barr about what an honor it was. I was like, well, that's not the way I thought that breakup was going to go. I thought he was, like G. Gordon Liddy said, just let me know what corner you're going to leave my body on, and I was surprised at that. What I was not surprised by was the timing of the announcement, which was right as the Electoral College was certified for President-elect Biden. They immediately ran out there and were like, so Barr's stepping down. They made it look like he resigned, and this, we know this from politics, we know this from show business. Scott, it seemed like it's I'm stepping down to spend more time with my family. Always means I got fired, but they're letting me not say it. What do you think about Barr resigning at a point where it's like, what, he had like maybe 2 weeks of actual work ahead of him?
I know it's just idiotic, and goes to this entire presidency, who Trump has had the most turnover of any president you can see. And I now with acting, I've lost track of how many attorneys general that we've now had. 5? Will this be the 5th one? I mean, for a month. I think, yeah. It's ridiculous. And like you said, he only had a few weeks left, but we know again that Trump was upset, especially when Bill Barr came out and basically said there was no evidence of fraud. I think a lot of these people that are looking now that Trump has lost re-election and is leaving are starting to grapple again with their own identities. And I've said this before too, and we've talked about even Bill Barr, is that, Bill Barr's hopeful that there's a future for him in the Republican Party somewhere. And, you have to kind of start to protect your own self in this sinking ship. And even I think this was too far for him to even go down this fraud route. But he's not going to be remembered kindly for all, like you said, the sycophantic things that he did for Trump, getting ahead of the Mueller report and making these making it look like Trump was exonerated when he wasn't. And, all these other things that he has done to protect Trump, going insofar as having the Justice Department, try to take away the case with Flynn before Flynn was pardoned. I mean, you just look at a lot of the things that he did. It's just not going to look good for him, regardless of him trying to exit early. I don't know. Again, going back to the Hunter Biden thing, which again has no place to what Joe Biden's doing, because that's his child. It's like a Donald Trump Jr., who's also, I'm sure, has a lot of things that that are gonna pop up after Donald Trump was out of office, besides Donald Trump himself. But I don't know, for instance, who was directing this look at Hunter Biden's taxes and everything too. Was this something that Donald Trump was doing? We saw that Donald Trump was trying to do everything he could to unearth things for Joe Biden before the election anyways, and that's why he got impeached a year ago, was for these type of things. So I'm still not even confident that there wasn't some direction by Donald Trump himself to have this investigation to find anything or something they could on Hunter Biden. But I'm somewhat surprised, unless it was just such flimsy enough evidence at this point for Hunter Biden, for, again, Bill Barr to even have anything to say or do before the election at that, because there just wasn't enough there. And it's the same thing with fraud. You have to have a pretty good case before you just bring it out to the American people. And I think, again, he's looking at his legacy, and he already sees that it's not going to be a good one with some of the things he did with Donald Trump. So, yeah.
And I guess to, some extent, there is really, I guess, look, we're about to head into pardon season, and perhaps you don't want to be the Attorney General, Tamra, when some of these, these preemptive pardons. I saw something on Twitter that made me think it had actually happened, that he had that Trump had pardoned Julian Assange. But they're calling for things like that for him and Edward Snowden, and and perhaps Bill Barr is just like, I don't want to be any part of pardoning those people. Do you how much of it do you think is Barr feeling like, I'm going to take this opportunity where you don't want me to be here to definitely get out before, we still have 5 weeks for the shit to really hit the fan,
I think it's literally a matter of, have you ever been in a job where you worked with somebody that you can't stand so much that you're just like, I'll quit and not have a job rather than have to spend another minute with this person? I think I think it's that, more so than any reason, anything other than, concern about a reputation or a future career possibilities or anything like that. I think it's just that I can't stand to do this a single minute for my own sanity.
It's like the idea of 3 more weeks was just too much. I think that on a normal day, that wasn't the day that the Electoral College met, I would say that the top story ought to be the fact that people are starting to receive COVID vaccinations today. I think the first person was a nurse, or it was definitely a medical professional in New York State. We saw who the first people were here in California as well. And I think that there is no shortage of blame at leaders around the world for how the pandemic was handled, but that certainly includes President Trump. I do think that I think he will not get the amount of credit that perhaps he deserves for there being this vaccine so quickly. I mean, if you guys remember,
he's his own worst enemy. I mean, that's the thing. Like, he would have probably received more credit due if he hadn't hit if he wasn't railing on the fraud thing so hard right now.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He's distracted people so much that as this great news happens and as this is out there, and look, I mean, I remember in April, they were telling us that, like, best case scenario, there'll be a year and a half before we have a vaccine. And here we are at the end of the year. And, it was something that Trump was derided for a lot, especially on the left, was saying that there'll be a vaccine before the end of the year. Now, he said there would be one before a very special day in November, and he meant Election Day. Whatever you believe, somebody made sure that didn't happen, that it came out before then. But we did get it by the end of the year. And I know that neither Scott nor Tamara are going to get it till probably the summer. I've actually had 2 of them already. I just want to be doubly protected. I had the Pfizer one and the Moderna, and I'm going to go get another one after the show, just so that I can start going to concerts again. I want to see Ted Nugent, actually. No, but so we have
alone in an arena holding a lighter.
I
all
mean,
by yourself.
Honestly, that I think about the social distancing there, just being the only one in an arena with anybody performing on stage. I'd go see Justin Bieber if it meant that I could go to but so I think that certainly no shortage of blame to be directed at President Trump for the worsening of the pandemic, and also for saying that it was going to go away, and not wearing masks, and the fact that literally everyone who works for him got it, and a few family members. But the fact I don't
his brother
know.
Probably died from it.
Yeah,
right.
I know
exactly.
I actually forgot
Yep.
about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are definitely plenty of people who feel that that's what happened. But there's certainly not credit being given for the fact that I don't know which presidents that I think could have strong-armed the scientists, thrown the money, and actually been proven right, and no, we'll have something by the end of the year. Now, honestly, the majority of Americans aren't going to get it, but you have people that are starting to get it now, literally today. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm trying to find, somewhere the shred of credit, the needle in the haystack. But I don't know. I feel like there is some degree of credit that President Trump deserves, Tamara, and I think he will never get it, or if he does get it, it would be like 20 years from now. What do you think, Tamara?
I agree. He deserves credit for the expediting of it. What's the team called? The
you mean
fast track
Project Warp Speed?
Project Warp Speed. I mean, I think that's where credit is due. And like I said, he's his own worst enemy in so many ways. But if his thesis wasn't circling around election fraud right now, I do think, maybe not full credit, but he would definitely be receiving a lot more acknowledgement if he was not doubling down on a larger issue right now.
Yeah, what do you think?
I disagree, and I'm not even just saying that it's because it's Trump. I just don't think he gets a lot of credit.
I'll just bring Kendall's comment. Pfizer and BioNTech had zero to do with Trump.
Those
were.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
There are other vaccines out there, but yes, those ones were. I don't know. Those Germany. I don't even.
Right, BioNTech is German. I would say, I think it was more lucky that he happened to be right that the vaccine was done and approved by the end of the year. I think it was just nobody had ever had something where a vaccine had been ramped up and done as quickly as that. That's why, and of course, doctors in the medical profession are going to be more cautious. They're never going to go out on a limb and say, we'll have it by the end of the year. But, Donald Trump lives in going overboard and coming up with the most outlandish things. And he just happened to be right in the sense, but I don't think he actually knew that for sure. He was more lucky than not when it came down to that. And again, like BioNTech is a German company. You had scientists, I was reading an article a couple months ago about all these different scientists all over the world that have been collaborating and working on getting this vaccine. And because this was a pandemic that affected every single corner of the globe, not just here in the US and everywhere, that you had a vested interest in the world of getting this out and worked on. And it just goes to show too, if you get, the entire world together to work on something for the common good, the things that you can accomplish. So no, I don't really think he really does deserve any credit, and any credit that he would get has been completely outweighed by his horrible mismanagement from the beginning of this pandemic, his horrible calling it the China virus, his, saying it was miraculously going to disappear, and making this into a political issue that didn't need to be, like you said, of not wearing masks, of, again, making everyone feel that, this was wrong to do this and wear masks. I mean, we've now hit 300,000 deaths as of today from this virus. We are the worst in the entire planet of deaths per capita. So he gets no credit because of the fact of what he could have gotten credit for is if he had started from day one and said, let's take this seriously, not made it a political issue, and we could have saved a lot more lives going down the line. And I think any other American president would have thrown whatever money it took to be able to make this happen. But he's derided it from the get-go, and he had nothing to do with it. Like you said, Pfizer didn't take the money. They were not a part of that. And then, he made that whole comment a couple weeks ago in the Rose Garden about how that was not true. It's like he could not just let things go. And to Tamra's point, if he had not sat around and talked about all these other things too, maybe the media would have given him a little more credit. But in my opinion, he does not deserve any of it. And he will go down in history as being a failure on this issue when you look at the numbers from around the world and how other countries handled it and how we did. And we were terrible. There's no other way of going around it. And the whole thing could have been preventable. So yeah, absolutely not. He gets zero credit.
All right. I think that sounds like a vote for President Trump from Scott. No, but that's the alternative facts approach towards interpreting statements now. Look, I think that it is good news, that you're seeing it and you are hearing about how we could have had more doses available in the shorter term. But the Trump administration was like, nah, that's enough. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
We're good. It's like, you're sure? We got a lot of, nah, it's fine. We don't need it. But sort of the final topic on this is there is this idea that, everybody in America should be vaccinated before we worry about the rest of the world. And that is not up to us. But sort of that perception is, I think people that are far more susceptible, people that are older in other parts of the world should certainly be a higher priority. And as much as I want to be able to get it, but it's also, I think people I don't think are quite ready for what it means to have this vaccine, because you're going to have the people that don't get it, which is surprising because this is Trump's vaccine as far as they're concerned, and yet they still don't want it. It's like, well, yeah, but he did this. This is your guy. Just go ahead. And of course, Trump doesn't need it. So he's not going to go out there. Obama, W, and Bill Clinton all said that they would get it on TV, but Trump doesn't need it. He's like, I've already given it to everybody that I know, so it's fine. What do I need an injection for? So I mean, it's President-elect Biden was definitely, people were very critical of him talking about the dark winter that's ahead of us. And there'll also be a pretty dark spring. But I think, you're able to. Game
of Thrones.
Yes. You're able to discern that it can still be good news, even if it's like, oh, yeah, this doesn't make everything better. But you can certainly feel more optimistic about it.
He's making a speech tonight, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Biden is going to talk more about this now that he has, I believe we're now on the 40th consecutive day where Joe Biden has beaten President Trump in some way or another, whether it's in court or, votes, and now it's Electoral College. And, we're going to see if there's any drama when the Senate convenes, and that's on January 6th, and the Georgia runoff is on January 5th. So I believe we will be back on January 6th with whatever the show is going to be called, and we will talk about all of that. But I think that it's always been interesting to talk on this show, but if we ever have a week where I just have no idea what we're going to talk about because nothing seems interesting, that'll be a relief. I think that's what I look forward to in 2020.
Going back to the vaccine real quick, I posted a joke on Facebook, and a couple people, even, people who are liberal Democrats, said they, I wouldn't get it right now, the vaccine. I want to wait and see what happens. And I thought that was so strange because aren't all vaccine? I mean, we don't have vaccines that are 100% effective, right?
Correct.
I mean, there's always, so I feel like the people who are not conspiratorial thinking, the people who are just questioning whether this new thing is worth trusting, I find that just so strange to be like, this is medicine, though. This is how medicine works.
I think it's human nature too, because they're not medical professionals, and there's this fear of like, oh, this did happen so fast, and there's this fear of like, even if it doesn't work, what are the side effects? Or if it does work, what are those side effects? What are they going to be?
Yeah.
You know, this was rushed out so much, so it's sort of human nature to question it to some degree. So I'm not surprised, and I think that's on both sides, you know, left and right, of just feeling this kind of fear of like, whoa, this happened in a couple months, like a year ago, we didn't even really know about this, so we're starting to find out in China, and now all of a sudden we have this vaccine. So I think it's definitely human nature, and there's definitely that feeling of like, oh, you know, maybe we'll wait and see if anyone else is going to have these crazy side effects or anything else. So it doesn't completely surprise me. And again, I think you also have a lot of folks out there too that feel healthy and don't feel concerned if they did get it somehow. So they're not the ones that are going to rush out to get it. It's more like you said, and we also have a lot of you know, issues in the past. I have some Black friends who aren't comfortable taking it just from medical things in the past, where their families, you know, they knew of their grandparents being used basically as guinea pigs for tests. So you have other issues that are bigger, that are understandable, of why people are not going to go out right away. But, you know, the magic number is really getting 70% out there of the population, because that's when you'll get that really solid herd immunity. And you're never going to get 100% either. Just like there's no 100% vaccine coverage, there's not going to be 100% of the population that's ever going to get it either. But our hope is that you'll get close to 70%, and then, you know, you'll have that herd immunity built in, and then, you know, from there it'll be less likely to be able to come back around. But I feel it's going to be like a flu shot, that you're just going to have to go every year and get it as different strains come out and possibly mutate throughout the year. That it'll just be something hopefully everyone will just get used to and either take it or not, kind of thing, every year.
Right. I mean, we live in a society where we have become conditioned that when there's a new iPhone, we wait at least 2 months before we actually try to get it.
Exactly.
So I think that you know, those of us who might be lower down on the list are like, okay, good. Let's see how it goes from this point on.
Or if you're like me, you wait like several iPhones through, and you stick to your iPhone 8, and then you're like, do I switch now or do I wait for the next one again?
It's funny.
I don't know why we didn't just do. Apple should have volunteered to be like, you get the vaccine, you get a free
get a free iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think obviously good news, and you
Great
know,
news,
some,
yeah.
optimism on the future. And then before we say goodbye and let everybody know where they can keep in touch with us over the next few weeks, you know, Tamara, you referenced Jake Tapper earlier, and I follow him on Twitter. And what he's been doing today, despite all of this news, is he's tweeted out photos of, I believe, all 27 lives that were lost in the Newtown school shooting, which was on this day. And it's a reminder of, you know, other issues that post-pandemic it would be great to be able to focus on. I don't know what the solution is on things like that, you know, on how you get to a point where a school shooting doesn't happen. And I don't mean to make light of it, but with schools being closed the way that they have been, we haven't had that really. I don't know that there's been one this year. And if there was, it was in February, you know? So it would be great if we could have the same kind of focus on preventing something like that. Cause it's just heartbreaking to see the teachers and the kids and all that. So it's, you know, just a reminder of just how much there is for President-elect Biden to focus on in the years ahead. Obviously, job one is the, you know, figuring out this pandemic, getting us back to anything that resembles normal. And we will be around to talk about all of it in January. And I really think there's going to be a sidebar where I'm going to throw out like 20 names of what the show should be called. And I'm going to make Tamara pick. No, we're going to try and come up. We're going to try and come up. Yeah, we're going to try and come up with what it should be called. But
the Biden Bulletin.
you know what? That's one that I think my mom suggested that, actually, the Biden Bulletin.
I know, we were talking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But Tamara, during the holiday season, where should people find you?
Find me on TikTok at Hey Tamra.
And Scott, there's still so much to talk to Mitch McConnell about.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm sure you're hoping that he won't be majority leader by the next time we do the show.
That's right.
But
the next time we do the show, we'll see if he keeps his job or if he's demoted. Yeah.
and where can people find you?
You can find me at SMan80. That's SMan80.
Who'd be majority leader if?
It's probably Schumer, right?
Schumer, but I would hope not. But
yeah,
but as of now,
because Kelsey was always pulling for Warren. So how would that happen?
I would too. They would vote on it. The Democrats would vote and decide who they want.
So the leaders just voted on. That's it.
Okay. So I mean, I think that maybe that's how we would get Chelsea back because she is very busy. But if Elizabeth Warren were majority leader, maybe she would be on. And as it says on the screen, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you should subscribe to the Blackcast channel because then you'll see this show, whatever it's called, whenever it's back, and also far less consequential shows like The Mandalorian and Star Trek and so much more. But it's always fun to talk about all of this stuff. Even when it's not fun, it's still fun to get to talk about it. And we wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and for my Star Wars friends out there, Happy Life Day. And of course, Happy New Year. And we will see you in the next year, in the new year, everybody.